Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. Welcome to the big news. The topic for today's discussion, Maharashtra political crisis. Let us try and understand what is this topic all about. Before that, we have an announcement. BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS would be conducting a free IAS workshop, and the topic for this workshop would be complete guidance to crack UPSC CSE 2023. This workshop will be exclusively available on our BYJU'S Exam Prep application. So what is that you have to do? Download this application and watch this lecture delivered by Sarmat Mehraj sir on 25th of June 2022 at 6 p.m. So please to download our application, give the necessary information, and you would be able to understand how to strategize for your upcoming examination. Let's get started and try and understand what is this topic all about. In the state of Maharashtra, we currently have the coalition government. What is the coalition government? When you have two or three political parties which come together, form the government that is called as the coalition government. Currently, we have the Maha Aghadi government, where in the state of Maharashtra, there are as many as 288 legislative assembly seats. What is the majority that is required? The majority that is required is 144 plus 1. If you consider Shiv Sena, they have as many as 55 MLAs, NCPs 53 MLAs, Congress 44 MLAs. They all came together and they formed the government. So it is this government which is currently in position in the state of Maharashtra. But what is happening right now? The Shiv Sena-led Maha Aghadi government is battling a survival crisis following the rebellion of a senior Sena minister, Eknath Shinde, and a sizable number of MLAs belonging to Uddhav Thackeray-led party. What is the issue here? As I told you, there are three political parties which have come together. They have formed a coalition government. Within Shiv Sena, what we currently have is an internal turmoil. What is this internal turmoil? You have one of the other leaders of Shiv Sena, which happens to be Eknath Shinde. Eknath Shinde says that he is not happy with this coalition. Why? Because this happens to be an unnatural alliance. He goes on to say it is the NCP and the Congress who are growing stronger day by day, and it is the Shiv Sena, the governing bloc which is leading the government, is getting weaker day by day. As a result, Eknath Shinde ji goes on to say that they do not want to stay with this coalition, and as a result, they want to come out of this coalition. It is in this particular backdrop what we also have is a political crisis where few MLAs from the Shiv Sena are not happy with the coalition government and they want to move outside the government. As the Maharashtra political crisis continues to play out with the Shiv Sena headed for a split, we need to understand what is the role of the governor during a floor test, and we also have to understand what is this floor test all about. First, let us try and understand what is this floor test all about. When we speak about floor test, what is this floor test? As the very name denotes, this is nothing but a test that is conducted on the floor of the legislative assembly. If we have to look into the definition, a floor test is a motion through which the government of the day seeks to know whether it still enjoys the confidence of the legislature. What do we understand by this? When we consider the state of affairs, what we have is the legislature. We also have the executive as well. In United States of America, we have the clear-cut powers. You have the legislature which makes the laws. You have the executive which implement the laws. But when it comes to India, what we have is the overlapping jurisdiction. What is this overlapping jurisdiction? First, they are elected as the legislatures in India, and from the legislature, they also become the executive as well. So it is the executive which is also trying to tell to the people in the floor that we have enough number of legislatures in our support. So basically, a floor test is primarily taken to know whether the executive enjoys the confidence of the legislature. The legislature is elected. From the legislature, you form the executive. So the executive is saying to the floor that we have enough number of legislators who are backing the executive. So this happens to be a constitutional mechanism under which a chief minister who is appointed by the governor will be asked to prove the majority on the floor of the legislative assembly. As part of this procedure, the chief minister who is appointed by the governor will be asked to prove the majority. What is the procedure for this? When we have a single party, let's say for example, it can be BJP or it can be Congress or any other party. If there is a single party which has the majority, you would have the chief ministerial candidate who comes in front and he says he has the majority. There will be no issues whatsoever. But if there is a coalition, that is when the issue arises. So if there is a coalition, he has to come over. He also has to explain that he also has the backing of so many MLAs on the floor of the house. So in case of the majority, if it is questioned, in case of the coalition, the leader of the party which claims the majority has to move a vote of confidence in the assembly and prove the majority among the present and the voting. So in this particular case, the chief minister has to move what is called as the vote of confidence and win a majority among those present and voting. And in case the chief minister is not able to prove the majority on the floor of the house, he has to resign. This procedure is also equivalent to what happens in the parliament as well. So a vote of confidence is put right in front of the floor, and if he is not backed by number of legislators in that particular case, the chief minister has to resign. We also have another word called as the composite floor test. What is this composite floor test? If there is a single party, if the single party is laying claim to the majority to form the government, there will be no issues. What if we have a coalition, or within the same political party there are two leaders who are wanting to stake claim to the government? In that particular case, if there is more than one person claiming to form the government and the majority is not clear in whose favor these legislators are supporting, in that case what we have is called as the composite floor test. In the normal floor test, we know for the fact who is the leader, but in the composite floor test, what we have is two leaders who are claiming to form the government. The governor does not know who has the numbers. So in that particular case, where there is more than one person staking claim for to form the government, in that case the governor will ask these two members to come over, put out their numbers, and ultimately the person who is able to show the numbers will be able to form the government. Now what if both the people lay claim to form the government and they also have equal number? In that particular case, it is the speaker who will ultimately have the authority. So it is the speaker who will put the casting vote, and whoever has more numbers will ultimately form the government. So where should it be held? Whether it should be held in the governor's office in the Raj Bhavan, or should it be held on the floor of the Legislative Assembly, was decided in one of the landmark judgments called as SR Bommai case. So this floor test as a concept has been existing, but the Supreme Court in the landmark judgment of the SR Bommai case clearly said that whenever floor test has to be conducted, it has to be conducted on the floor of the Legislative Assembly and not in Raj Bhavan. How did the Supreme Court come to this particular conclusion? The Supreme Court looks into Article 164 of 2, which says that the Council of Ministers shall be collectively responsible to the Legislative Assembly of the state. Since it makes a mention of the Legislative Assembly, in case there is a chief minister who has to come with the vote of confidence and show it to the governor that he has the majority, it is not in the Raj Bhavan, but it happens on the floor of the house. So the Supreme Court in the SR Bommai case interpreted that the ultimate test of majority is not to be held in Raj Bhavan but on the floor of the house. What is the governor's role when it comes to the floor test? What we have to look at is Article 174 of the Indian Constitution. What does it speak about? It speaks about sessions of the state legislature, prorogation and dissolution. 174 of 2 goes on to say the governor may from time to time prorogue the house or either house, and it also says dissolve the legislative assembly. So when you have this parameter, dissolve the legislative assembly, who has that power? It is being given to the governor. So Article 174 of 2 of B clearly goes on to say that the Constitution has given the power to the governor to dissolve the assembly on the basis of aid and advice of the cabinet. Do note, it is on the aid and advice of the cabinet. But what if the cabinet does not have the numbers? What if they do not enjoy the majority? In that particular case, the governor also has the discretion. He would be able to apply his mind that when the chief minister does not garner the majority, in that case, the governor would be able to use his mind and also dissolve the assembly as well. The Supreme Court in number of cases has also said that this is an exceptional power that is given to the governor of that particular state, and this has to be used in a proper and in a cautious manner. The governor, being the appointee of the president, does not represent any of the political parties. He should not have any of the political views. So the governor is expected to discharge this role of a constitutional principle on a basis of ethos that have been represented in the constitution. So when the governor feels that the chief minister does not have the majority, and if he is not able to prove it on the floor of the house, the governor would be able to dissolve the assembly. We also have the Supreme Court of India, which has also clarified this floor test position in Shivraj Singh Chauhan and others versus Speaker of Madhya Pradesh Legislative Assembly and others. What did the Supreme Court say? The Supreme Court held that the power exercised by the governor of MP to convene the assembly for a floor test cannot be regarded as the constitutional impropriety. So the bench, consisting of Justice Chandrachud, went on to say that the governor, if he feels that the chief minister does not have the numbers to form the government, if there is the prerogative of the governor to ask for the floor test. So the governor's position in this particular case should not be treated as unconstitutional, because this is the work that is allocated to the governor. In fact, the Supreme Court of India also looked into SR Bommai case. It also looked into Nabam Rebia case, and it went on to say that the governor has the objective reasons to believe that this government, the incumbent government, does not have the confidence of the house. He can get a floor test tested on the floor of the legislative assembly. So when we speak about the floor test, the governor's power does not immediately end after the general elections are done, but it continues to be present as long as the government is in picture. If the chief minister does not have the majority, in all likelihood you will have the governor who will question the chief minister and can ask for the floor test to be conducted on the state legislative assembly's floor. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this topic. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.